Buck Martinez has revealed the real reason as to why he thinks Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has been struggling. And when you come to think of it, it makes a lot of sense. So I'll break that down on this episode of Jay's Digest, as well as an Erik Swanson injury update, what it could mean for Chad Green returning to action soon, and there's a lot of other options in the minor league. So I'll break that down and much more coming up next. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And yesterday, the Blue Jays picked up a much-needed win, but of course, the day that they win, the Rangers, the Astros, and the Mariners all decided to break their losing streaks as well. So the Blue Jays need to keep winning. They got to keep taking care of business and control their own destiny in a sense. They can't rely on other teams, but we did see Erik Swanson go down yesterday, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hit the home run the other day. But there's a reason as to why he's struggling. And Buck Martinez alluded to it on the broadcast and in an article as well, so we'll break that down. But, Nick, pretty big win yesterday.
Yeah, huge win yesterday. And before we get into the video, I'm not at my normal setup. I am on vacation, so if there's any technical difficulties, bear with us. But huge win yesterday. And before we get into all the juicy stuff with Buck Martinez, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 8,000. And Peter, let's get right into it. Buck Martinez reveals the truth behind Vladdy's struggles. And you kind of alluded to this in yesterday's video. It's very, very interesting, I guess is the word to use. And he went on an audio podcast, a radio show essentially, and I guess they asked him about Vladdy's struggles because, Buck Martinez is someone who's there every single day. He's at the stadium. He's about as tuned in as you can get out of all these reporters and anyone. He's been around baseball for so long. And so I'm not going to play the clip, but I did write out what he said for you guys because the actual clip was pretty bad quality. But this guy initially tweeted, here's a clip of Buck Martinez saying that Vladdy is being overcoached with, quote, too many voices in his head and that Vlad is overwhelmed with information. He wants Vlad to simplify his approach and not be coached up a lot and use the skills that once made him so good. And Peter, I'll just quickly show you now. I wrote this up myself. This is the exact quote of what Buck Martinez said. He said, quote, well, I think he has too many voices in his head now. His uncle talks to him. His dad talks to him. 3 to 4 hitting coaches. He has 3 to 4 hitting coaches. And then after a couple of minutes, he said, I think he needs to get back to the basics. He learned how to hit as a kid and learned how to get the ball and bat the ball up as a kid without too much coaching. He should revert to that and just go out there and essentially just swing the bat old school style, which, is what Buck Martinez always preaches if you watch the games, is the catcher and one leg is no good, an old school approach. But what are your thoughts on this from Buck Martinez?
Well, it's very true. And I think Buck Martinez, I don't always agree with everything that he says, but he's spot on with this. I mean, his dad's a Hall of Famer. His uncle is the one who taught him how to hit. Those are the voices you should be listening to. And a lot of professional baseball players have their own guys that help them with hitting and help them with their pitching or whatever. They don't often, use the approach that the hitting coach adopts for the team. They don't often listen to them in the offseason. They have their own guys for that and those types of information. So I'd like to see Vladdy just go back to what's made him successful. And we look at his season last year. He hit 30-something home runs, and we were all disappointed. That's the kind of expectations that he set on himself. He was had a 130-something WRC plus. He was 35% above league average, and we were all pissed off because he didn't have a 2021 type season. So he's got very high expectations, and it's safe to say that he's really been below those this year. And he's got to get back to what's made him successful. Just hit the ball hard, hit the ball in the air. Don't worry about if you're hitting to right field, because when I see Vladdy, I see someone that's not ready to attack fastballs. And the bat speed is still there. He's 24, 25 years old. He's not declining in bat speed. He's supposed to be getting stronger every year. So when I look at him and he misses a 91-mile-an-hour fastball in the inner half, it shows to me that his approach is just not where it needs to be. He's trying to inside out a 91-mile-an-hour fastball and take it to right field. Even if you are the hitting coaches of the Toronto Blue Jays, there's no way you're looking at that approach and saying, oh, yeah, that's what we want you to be doing, Vladdy. Keep it up, So yeah, I don't know. For whatever reason, something got crossed, and he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. But I think it's a simple fix in the offseason.
Yeah, and you alluded to it. Looking at his stats this year, he's really hitting the ball, and his bat speed's as good as it was in the 2021 season, and certainly as good as it was, if not better than last year. It's just, like you said, the approach is the thing that is completely kind of, falling off a cliff for him. You'll see him take fastballs right down the middle in 3-2 counts. We've seen that numerous times. You'll see him swing through fastballs that last year he would club. And again, last year we almost considered it a potential down season compared to 2021. But, this year is certainly much different. So interesting about Buck Martinez. Probably too many coaches in his head. Maybe just, narrow that down a bit. I'm sure the Jays are trying to figure it out. But I think at the end of the day, we're not going to be worrying about Vlad over the next year or two. It's just right now it's in a bit of a tough spot. But any final thoughts on that before we move on?
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think he'll get back to that, but this should have never happened in the first place. Too many people are trying to tinker with something that didn't need to be tinkered with. When you hit 48 home runs in a season and you almost win the Triple Crown and you finish second in the MVP race, leave it alone. Let that 22-year-old generational hitter keep being generational. Stop trying to make him better. He'll get better naturally. He just had one of the greatest seasons that we've ever seen in Blue Jay history at the age of 22. That's an upward trajectory, if you ask me. So just let it be. Now Vladdy's got to get back to what's made him successful, and I think he'll go ahead and do that in the offseason.
Yeah, so let us know your thoughts on that as we move on to a couple of minor things here. And the first one is a pretty big Swanson update. Obviously, he exited the game yesterday with, it was a bit of a scary injury because we didn't really know the severity of it. And John Schneider did come out and say after the game, the Blue Jays announced that he has right mid-back discomfort. Now, Peter, this is pretty vague. However, points in the right direction that this injury might not be super serious. However, we do remember the Bo Bichette thing right after the game. They said that, or the day after, they said it wasn't too serious. He ended up missing however many 15 games. However, this is a pretty good sign. However, it could mean that Chad Green, especially if Erik Swanson goes on the 10-day IL, that Chad Green comes up and potentially pitches very, very soon for the Blue Jays. He had a rehab start, I believe, yesterday, went one inning. I think he's going to pitch again today for consecutive days. And a couple of tweets here from the Walkout Podcast said, fingers crossed Swanson's okay, but having Chad Green, Jay Jackson, and Nate Pearson ready to go is huge. And maybe the timeline is hastened a bit and sped up on the Chad Green rehab. So any thoughts on that? Do you think Chad Green would be, he's bound to come back anyway, but maybe this, makes him a bit less conservative with Chad Green, or do you think it just keeps the timeline the way it is?
Yeah, I think it keeps the timeline the way it is. I don't think they're going to be that quick to rush Chad Green. I think there are other guys in line. When you look at Jay Jackson, who's probably going to be the first one to get called up there. Chad Green is probably the next one after him, but I don't know. I don't think he's quite ready, especially now for those high leverage situations. I'm not saying Jay Jackson is going to come in and be the eighth inning guy because the Jays do have that depth, but who slides into that Swanson role? I guess Jordan Hicks is going to take on a little bit more. Tim Meza is probably going to be a bit more active in the late innings, but it's not great. And we remember Jordan Romano dealt with some back discomfort. He went on the 15-day IL, and he missed a couple of weeks. So let's hope that he doesn't have to hit an IL stint because that's the one half of the remainder of the season that's left, right? So you don't want him missing 15 games or 2 weeks, whatever it may be. That could be catastrophic for the Toronto Blue Jays the way that he's pitched this year. So hopefully it's nothing serious. Hopefully he's back soon, and hopefully Chad Green is back soon as well.
Yeah, this is the benefit of having an extremely deep bullpen. I said 10-day IL. Obviously, it's 15 days, like you said, for pitchers, not 10. But regardless of Chad Green, if he comes up, I think he'll be good. But like you said, he's not going to slide into the Erik Swanson role anyway, hopefully, because he's not going to be ready for that. He's coming off the IL. But Jay Jackson's a guy that maybe they're even more comfortable with because he's pitched so much with the team this season, and then maybe ease Chad Green in. So it'll be very, very interesting to see what they do with that. And then one final topic to wrap it up is Schneider speaks out on a couple things. And Peter, I just wanted to get your thoughts on a couple of these comments before we wrap up. One from before yesterday's win, and then one from after their win. So this one was from before the win or after the win. It said, will David Schneider be up in the lineup tomorrow? Yep. Now, Peter, David Schneider obviously essentially won us the game with 3 for 3 with a home run and a walk yesterday. And we've been kind of preaching it a little bit. We didn't talk about it as much, but any thoughts on David Schneider very quickly? I think he needs to be in the lineup until he was a bit cool realistically before yesterday's game. I think he was, he had 11 Ks in his last 17 at-bats with a couple, homers sandwiched in between, but better option than Santiago Espinal at this point for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would start him at third base today. I don't know if that's an outrageous take. I would start him at third base instead of Matt Chapman. I don't think he's been cutting it. Even defensively, he hasn't been cutting it. So why not go ahead and try that? Obviously, his defense is going to be a step down from platinum glove level Matt Chapman, but the way he's been swinging the bat, you got to get him back in there. And obviously, you think Whit Merrifield figures to be in the lineup again. Bo is probably going to be back at shortstop. And you don't want to take Dalton Varshaw's bat out of the lineup either. Kevin Kiermaier had an off day yesterday. So when I look at that, there's no place really for Davis Schneider unless he DHs today. And you don't want that with Brandon Belt. So I would start him at third base. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't know what they're going to do here. Maybe they give Whit Merrifield an off day. But after that game in Cincinnati where he hit the game-winning home run for the Blue Jays, I would have played him again. I get before that he was struggling, but then he broke out of it. He hit that huge home run. Give him a chance. See if he can keep this going. It's not like your team is scoring 13 to 15 runs a game. You got to see what's working and roll with it. So hopefully he gets back in there today. You'd be foolish to not put him back in there today. And we'll see. We'll see how he does.
Yeah, by the time this video goes out, you guys might know, so let us know in the comments what they end up doing. That's a good point. And again, Matt Chapman, he is going to be our third baseman going, forward for the rest of the season. But even giving him a day off or multiple days off over the next week might be beneficial because he looks a bit gassed out there, and he's a guy who does play every day. And then quickly to wrap it up, this was before yesterday's game. He said we can talk about it all they want, but we have to go do it. Schneider believes the staff's role is to put the players in position to have success with information, but it comes down for them being prepared to go do it. Peter, just any quick thoughts on this? They ended up going out and doing it, but I don't know. The coaches are talking a lot. I just want to see them get it done.
Yeah, I want to see him get it done too. And yesterday was a good example of that. They hit well. Defense wasn't great, but they managed to squeak out of there with a win. I know it's the Guardians, but the Guardians always play them tough, so I'm not too mad that they're playing competitive games amongst each other. But yeah, go ahead and get the series win today, and then go ahead and win the next 4 series because you have no choice at this point. You got to go ahead and get W's. It's too late. You don't want to wait till the end of the season to start doing that.
Yeah, and it's now or never for them. So hopefully they can win this afternoon. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.